Hello and welcome to What's on the Shelf. I'm your host, Jen, and today, for another episode of Before the Box, we have another special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Peter Guth, and I'm the designer of WordSwap, which is the game we're talking about.
So, tell us about WordSwap.
WordSwap is a word game, as evident by the name, and it kind of came about. Actually, the one of the games that inspired it is a game that I think a lot of people know called Bonanza by Uwe Rosenberg, and I'd always loved Bonanza. For a lot of different reasons. I love the interaction. I love the trading in that game. It has a lot of deep strategy, even though it's very simple in rules and very funny to play. And I was like, is there a way to maybe apply some of these principles to a different style of game or a different theme or whatnot? And I had the idea for a word game, and WordSwap was born from that. It's definitely become its own beast, its own animal through the whole process, and it's definitely. Now there's only a few things that kind of resemble it. It's not an exact copy or anything like that. It never was intended to be. So I started with that as kind of an idea, and then I ran with it, and WordSwap was born, and it turned into kind of a very kind of versatile trading word game. That's kind of the launching off point for the game.
So, this is coming to Kickstarter, correct?
It is, yes. So this coming Tuesday, July 28th, we are launching the Kickstarter, and it is my first one. We're super excited. A lot of unknowns right now, but we're hoping for the best, and we've been putting a lot of time into it, and we're excited.
So normally, one of the things that a lot of Kickstarter does is stretch goals. Do you have anything planned like that for your particular campaign?
Yes, good question. As part of the game, we've included what we call goal cards, or they're actually kind of categories. And so during the game, you're going to be spelling words, and you can kind of like rearrange letters as you go throughout the game. So when you start spelling a word, it doesn't have to be complete right away. And so you can kind of constantly be like adding letters and rearranging letters to kind of change your word over time. One of the things that you'll be trying to do, you don't necessarily have to do it, you'll still get points otherwise, but one of the things you'll be trying to do is scoring. Actually, I have a few right here. Goal cards. So like I have like type of flower. I'm not sure if this is backwards on the screen or not.
No, it's the right way.
City. Good deal. Mode of transportation. Garden tool. I'm not sure if those are clear or not, but anyway, and these are all goal cards that you'll be able to. They're going to be shared goals, so you'll be able to actually spell words that fall into those categories and earn bonus points if you do. And if you spell a word in a category before someone else does, then you claim that goal. So it kind of adds a little bit of interaction. Long story short, a lot of the stretch goals that I have are little 2-card additions to the goal card pack to basically make the game more variable, add some more options for each time you play, add some more variability and interaction and whatnot. So that's the main kind of stretch goal kind of strategy that we used for a lot of the stretch goals we used. There's a few other kind of things in there. We had some custom goal cards we're going to have for one of the stretch goals. And then if we get to one of the higher levels, we'll be able to do a component kind of upgrade and add like a nicer box insert and be able to provide a little bit nicer components.
Awesome. So I'm going to go into some general questions for you. So what was your first experience in board gaming?
It's probably maybe not. I'll just tell my story, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I grew up always playing like typical stuff like Monopoly and Chutes and Ladders, Sorry, whatnot. I mean, I always enjoyed them, but nothing really stood out as being anything. Like, I guess I didn't know anything different, so I was kind of like, oh, this is fun. But like, it's not until you realize, like, a lot of so many of those games are just so, like, you have no agency or very little agency. It's just rolling die and moving. It's very, very, very luck based and whatnot. And so I believe, as most people, I think I heard that you still hadn't played it yet. Catan?
Nope.
Did I hear that?
It.
So Catan. Catan was, well, I think, was my first. Was my first game, as it was for a lot of people. And that was in college. And then it was kind of random from there. I had a friend who had a game called Epic Duels, which I think you were into Unmatched. I think I saw something about too. So that's based on Epic Duels. And so I had a buddy who was into that, and we got super into Epic Duels. Heroescape was another big one. I got into Heroescape, and so we would build maps, like massive maps, and play like all days, like on the weekends and stuff like that. And so I kind of just jumped in head first. After I saw Catan, I was like, oh, this is so amazing, and we just kind of started getting introduced to other stuff. And Carcassonne was another early one. There's a bunch of early ones that I had, and then I started kind of slowly building my collection off of that. I kind of quickly went up to like 10 or 20 games that I had for a while, and then like within the last 5 years, it's kind of jumped, and now I probably have like 60 or 70. So it's not as bad as some people I know. I'm not sure how big your collection is, but
my collection is rounding up on the 800 mark.
Holy cow! Okay, yeah. So I So I'm totally aware that, like, I'm kind of in the middle ground. Like, I'm more than most people, but for the board gaming crowd, I'm actually pretty modest. So anyway, yeah. So that's kind of where I started, and then I never really like thought I would get into game design, but like, yeah, that's kind of the beginning of it, and I just kind of kept on collecting, and I've kind of been curating and stuff too. Like, one of my goals is about the game for me, and it's more about like the experience I have with people, which I would assume is a lot of people that play board games. But I like to have a good variety of, like, hey, when someone comes, I can be like, oh, they're going to like this game, and I'll bring this one out, as opposed to being like, I love this game, let me try and force them to play this thing with me, you know? So I have a pretty good variety of games, and I've kind of curated them. And after getting married, you know, then my wife kind of like had a lot of games that she didn't like that I liked, and I was like, well, if we're never going to play it, may as well sell it, you know? So a lot of stuff like that. And so I've just kind of it's been growing and shrinking, and then kind of, you know, honing it in, figuring out what's good. And that's kind of been my personal journey with board games, and the ones that I own personally and whatnot. But here we are.
So did you have a different career before you decided to dive into the board game industry?
Yes, and I still do. This is actually still just a side thing for me, and it's actually been taking up a ton of my time, but I'm actually a civil engineer. So I spend my days doing hydraulic modeling for bridges, and it's kind of boring, but I do a lot of drainage design, and I can get into the details, but it's not it's not entertaining material. But so that's what I went to school for, and that's what I'm doing right now. And this is a hobby, but I'm, you know, hopefully eventually it can be something that's more than that. But right now we're financially, I just can't swing it being able to just kind of up and quit, you know. So I'm still at my day job, and I don't, to be clear, like, I don't hate it or anything. I just love board games, so I've just been getting into this, and engineering's been great. So it's kind of been a good balance of kind of creativity and kind of left brain, right brain. A lot of I've enjoyed it somewhat, but doing game design has definitely allowed me to exercise more of my right brain creative side. So that's been good.
So what's been the most exciting part of this so far for you?
To be honest, it's like probably like right now, or like leading up till Tuesday. Just to kind of like actually start to see. Well, it's just been like this whole kind of last few weeks or so, because like I started out just in concept, and I've been kind of keeping a journal and playtesting and iterating and all this stuff, and to finally be, well, when I first started to kind of like show my friends and family, they're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. Like, you had an idea and you made this, and then to be able to actually start kind of creating marketing videos and actually show that to people on social media, and people to actually kind of realize like, oh, this is coming to fruition, and this is actually something tangible that's actually fun, just to get feedback from people and people that are enjoying it. And it's just, it's really exciting.
So it looks like Discord crashed on us yet again, because I'm having issues on my end. Yeah. Let's pause the video again. There we go.
Right.
So, you were saying that the most exciting part for you right now is the stuff leading up to the campaign starting up.
Yeah, I mean, just being able to get people's reactions of like, hey, like, this is something I designed, and I'm able to kind of show it to people, and people are actually enjoying it and realizing like, oh, this is a really good game, and it's just good to get good feedback, and hoping that just continues. But we'll see.
So, for a newcomer to the industry, what kind of advice would you give to them at this point?
Well, seeing as I am still a newcomer, I mean, I can give some advice, but I think the thing that I've learned the most so far in my short tenure has been to just start. Like, for me, like, my biggest enemy has been kind of like having self-doubt and like thinking so far ahead that I'm like, oh, well, I may fail here, so I may as well not even try, or whatever and whatnot. And so what this has taught me is that I don't know, I've kind of like, there's been several times where I've kind of like wanted to just kind of like either move on to another game design idea I had, or move on to something else. And I'm like, no, I need to keep on working on this. I need to follow through with it. I need to, and just kind of basically just discipline, which is applicable in any area of life. But this has been especially kind of teaching me about how to discipline myself and get stuff on the schedule. And I guess what I would say is just like, if you have an idea, like, don't doubt yourself. At least like get to the first step and at least try the game out and see where it goes, and then don't stop, and like continue with it until a door gets slammed in your face and you absolutely can't continue. Like, just keep on going. So that's, I mean, so far, obviously I'm only one game in, and we'll see where this goes, but
so this is a pretty interesting question for a lot of people. So what's more important to you, mechanics or story for your game?
So I heard you ask this question before. I was thinking about this. I don't obviously, if you're looking at my particular game, there's not really a whole lot of theme here. It's just a word game. So I think for me, like, you don't have a game if you don't have mechanics. So I feel like I would say that mechanics are more important. But I don't think that like story is any less important. And I think that I also think that this might be a different opinion than most people, or maybe it's right. I'm not sure, but I feel like theme and story is connected to, but not the same as artwork. Mm-hmm. So like, if you have a game that looks nice and is very well illustrated, that can help immerse you in a theme, but it's not going to replace a good theme. Like, what did I say? Yeah, replace a good theme. Like, if you and I also think that like, story is something that kind of emerges if you have good mechanics. Like, if you have a good game that has good mechanics, you'll kind of be able to like tell your own stories each time you play it. Mm-hmm. Like a very, very different example from the game that I have here is Star Wars Rebellion. It's probably my favorite game of all time. I don't know if you've played it or not, or
I have not, but I've seen a lot of people playing it.
Okay. Yeah, and it is so exceptional. Every single time I play it, it is different, and it feels like I'm immersed in the world, and it feels like I'm like having my own experience. And it's like, and the game obviously goes a long way with artwork, and it's in the Star Wars universe, so of course it's going to be thematic. But like, the things that I remember are not the things that the game does for me it's what the I shouldn't say that. It's what the game like kind of provides that me and my opponent kind of create. So it's like the mechanics kind of create the story, if that makes sense.
No,
in
that
that
makes
case,
sense.
but it's not every game. So yeah.
So what kind of software did you use when designing your game?
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, Adobe Illustrator has been the big one. I've always been kind of like, I haven't like taken any official classes, but I've always dabbled in graphic design. I've always enjoyed it. And so I already had some experience with that, and I already kind of had an eye for it. And so I've actually done all my own graphic design. Granted, there's not a whole like a huge amount that I've done with it. You know, like there's just like the main logo on here, like I designed our company logo, like I did all the back and all the rulebook formatting and all that. Like, so Illustrator's been the biggest one. I've just used iMovie for like doing the marketing videos. Yeah, so far it's been kind of minimal. I haven't really, as far as like organization when I've been designing, like it's been just using Google Sheets, Google Docs to kind of keep things organized and that kind of stuff. Nothing too fancy. I would like to learn how to use InDesign, because I feel like that would have been way better to use for the rulebook. And I was trying to use Illustrator for it. So yeah, so I would like to use InDesign, but the barrier for that is like we also had said before, where if you get so many of these softwares you're trying to use with Creative Cloud, then your price per month starts to shoot up, and then I'm just trying to get by and the least amount of money spent right now. So
which is completely understandable for your first game as well. You got a budget.
Yeah.
Budget is key, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
Do you have other games in mind after this one?
I probably have like 4 or 5 ideas floating around in my head that I've started to take notes on. I have a real-time game that I'm pretty excited about that I haven't gotten to the table yet. Or I kind of had like a really early prototype I tried that kind of failed, but I have some more ideas that I want to try. There's a couple area control game ideas that I had. I don't know, a lot of stuff floating around. Nothing concrete enough to like reveal anything. It's just, but yes, I do have ideas. Yeah, I do have ideas, and it definitely like doing this one has definitely made me realize like what you can do, and then just also so like designing a game and then playing more games. It's kind of like the snowball effect of like thinking through everything with the design mindset of like, oh, like you could apply this with this theme, or you could apply this here. So that's been, yeah, I feel like my mind's kind of starting to be rewired a little bit, like with this design thing in mind. So I've been stuff has definitely started to flow through my mind a lot faster, and I'm trying to get better about writing stuff down and remembering ideas that I have and whatnot. So we'll see where things go.
So is there any particular part of the project so far that has been extremely hard or difficult to deal with?
I think, like I said, with the discipline thing, I think the hardest thing consistently has just been kind of like being like, just push through. Like if there's issues and whatnot. I haven't really been too discouraged early on. Like I was so passionate about it, and I could definitely see it working. And so I was kind of like, okay, like what do I need to change to make this work? What do I need to change to make this work? But then towards the end, I was kind of like getting a little bit more discouraged. And especially when like the pandemic hit, it was like I had it mostly designed at that point. But I was just kind of, it was like I wasn't like gung ho about getting it. I wanted to get it released, but it was like, oh, eventually I'll do it, whatever. And then once I got the prototype in the mail, I was like so excited. I was like, oh, like this looks so cool. I can't believe I made this, and this thing exists like in my hands. And then I kind of reignited my passion, and I kept on going. But one thing that's been difficult, and we'll see how this kind of works out in the campaign, is that the unknowns of like how good it will do and like building up my audience and whatnot has made it hard for me to like kind of have a concrete idea with pricing. And I feel like if I like I have a couple manufacturers lined up, one with like kind of like lower threshold of manufacturing, but it's a much higher manufacturing price. And so, and then if I get to a certain point, then I can kind of get that, we can buy in bulk and lower the price a little bit, and then be able to have a little bit more flexibility. And so I wanted to be able to charge less for it because of the nature of the game. But I don't know. So it's been kind of a struggle in my head figuring out like, okay, what's the right pricing for this game? What are people willing to pay for it? And then just getting feedback and realizing that, okay, like in order for us to make this work, this is what we're going to have to do. And just kind of thinking through those decisions of setting up the campaign. And so there's been nothing's been like extremely hard up to this point. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth because like eventually if we get to the point where we have to deliver on things and that is a whole headache on its own, then it could be interesting. But so far nothing has been so difficult that we haven't been able to deal with it. So yeah, so far.
So have you gone through a lot of playtesting for your particular game?
Yeah. So I don't think we've. It's probably I guess a game could always be playtested more. I mean, you could always like get more people to try it and get bigger data sets. Mm-hmm. But there's like, but yeah, I mean, like I would playtest all the time because that's how you like. That's like anything else. When you're designing something, the best way to design is to like just like throw something together, try it, see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then fix something. It's just easy because sometimes it can work all in your head, and then you haven't tried it yet, then all of a sudden you make it and it doesn't work. So, so I was playtesting we would playtest. And then obviously like you can make rule changes. Like if you didn't have to change components, like I could just kind of make a rule change and just try something different. Mm. And then there were some bigger changes where I was like, oh, I need to completely revamp like all the cards, or I need to redistribute the letters, or I need to change the colors. That was a big thing too. Like we started out early on, I had like something like 8 or 9 suits, like 8 or 9 different colors. And we played the game, and it was like impossible because like basically the gist of the game is that you have to spell words, but in order to get points for the word, you have to match color. Like it's based on how many colors you can get in one word. And it's come to the point now where I have like multiple colors on each card and all that, so you can kind of play around with that strategy a lot. But it used to be like each card had its own color, and there was like 9 different suits, and they all had like varying amounts, and it was like nearly impossible to like to do anything. And I was like, I was pretty discouraged that early on. I was like, this is so horrible. Like, what can I do to fix this? But it took, I just had to play test. We threw it on the table and tried it. Didn't work. All right, what do we need to do here? So went from 9 suits basically down to 4, and then a bunch of other iterations. But yeah, to summarize, yes, playtesting has been a huge part of it. Playtesting myself, playtesting with my wife, having friends over, sending out to people that I've connected with online that were interested, stuff like that. But try to do as much of, like, obviously, like, you can do a lot, like, with people that are like your friends and family, but there's some bias there. So I try to kind of get some other people that were more unbiased, or just kind of like friends of friends, or people that were just kind of somewhat interested but weren't, like, yeah, your game is great, just tell me what I want to hear, sort of thing. So playtesting has been a big part of it.
So from the playtesting, has a lot changed from the original start of the game?
Yeah, I guess I jumped the gun on that one a little bit. So the initial goal, or the initial kind of framework, was like, oh, well, like, I want to kind of do something similar to Bonanza, and Bonanza has, like, I don't know how many suits or whatever, and I was like, okay, we'll just start with this, and I quickly realized it didn't work, because you're not just collecting like sets, like, you're like having to spell out words, which requires very specific letters in a very specific order. Mm-hmm. So I was like, there's no way that's gonna work. And so we I quickly, like, got to a point. So went from the point where I had 9 suits, each having a unique color, and then each color had like a unique scoring. and it just was like it was totally way too complicated and messed up. And yeah, I got down to the point where we have 4 suits now, and then like color, like words. I also added like double letter words, so or cards. So like there's like cards where if you have it this way, it's an I, and then you can rotate it and it's an O. So and there's like triple letter or triple color letters that count as red, yellow, or blue. So when you spell a word that has one of those colors, you can count that as any of those 3. Yeah, and then there's like all these different, double lettered cards that can be used. Double color ones, so yeah, it's kind of definitely become like the composition of the cards was probably the most complicated thing to balance and hone in, because the suits and the letters, because it was like I started out with like basically a generic like, or what does the English language consist of mostly, like what kind of letters are mostly there. And then I kind of tried to add incentives and bonuses based on that. So like the ones that are more rare, I tried to add more incentives and bonuses to use those. And I kind of had some variety mixed in there with like different colored cards, like multicolored cards. Yeah, we initially didn't have wild cards. I added those in, but they don't come out randomly. You have to earn them, so then you can use those to like spell words. And then the big change that really kind of like amped it up was adding the goal cards, and that was like one of the later game changes, because before it was a relatively, even though there was trading, it was kind of a heads down sort of game. It was a very like let me, okay, like I need this specific letter, what do you need from me, but I might not have what you need. And so trading is definitely different than some of the other games that I was trying to kind of like emulate and whatnot. But it's still there. It's still important, and it's still a valuable mechanic. But yeah, the goal cards really amped it up, because it added this kind of racing element of like, ooh, I have the letters to spell like a type of flower. I can spell daisy or something, but then someone else already has like an RO out, and they can just add an SC to make rose. And so do I try and rush and race to see if I can get that card, or do I just kind of let them have it and work on something else or whatever it is? So you can kind of, it adds a little bit of kind of like this racing interactive element that wasn't even an initial plan for the game. And I think I had some playtesting feedback about it, and I tried it, and it worked really well. So that's probably one of the biggest, well, there's a lot of big changes, but that's one of the biggest recent changes that was not even on my radar initially.
So something that's been pointed out recently to me is, as a designer, have you thought about people with color blindness when designing the game?
Yeah, so game.
I think you glitched this time, so...
Help.
Hello? Gotta love technology.
Hello.
Hello. So your camera is frozen in a very odd position. And I think I lost you completely at this point. So I'm just going to pause the feed.
Sure. Okay.
So we're restarting. And yeah, so if you wanted to continue from there. So the question originally was, did playtesting really affect... No, I was asking about... So in playtesting or during the development of the game, have you thought about people with disabilities like color blindness?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So, initially, obviously, when we were playtesting the game, it was just let's just throw some colors on here and see how this goes. And as it went on, I was like, it would be, not only would it look cooler, but it would also just be a lot better for those who are hard of, just can't see very well or are colorblind or whatnot, to add in the patterns, so for like the blue cards, we added in like kind of the square pattern. The red one's a little bit kind of harder to see, but got like those kind of pill shapes, and then the green's got the triangles on there. That's a little harder to see as well. And then the yellow's got the circles on it. But it was kind of just an easy addition to add to it, and I think it'll kind of make the experience a little bit better for those who are playing, just to more easily see the differences between each card. Yeah, and I kind of also was able to add like in here, like when you look at the wild card, I actually have like you can see all 4 symbols in there.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know if that's clear or not.
No,
So I kind of so it's basically like the wild card is kind of like, oh, you can play this as any color, whatnot. Everything's kind of clarified in the rules, but I was able to kind of use those patterns kind of for more things than just the color blind to be able to see the difference, but also kind of apply those to graphically make things easier to understand when you're playing. It's a little bit redundant, but yeah. Anyway, you get what I'm saying.
No, exactly. So, is there anywhere in particular we can follow you at?
Yeah. So on Instagram at 4FI Games. So 4FI Games is the self-publishing company that I created. So it's the number 4FI. 4FI Games on Instagram, and then on Facebook the page is just Word Swap. So I can obviously give you links or whatever if you want to link those and whatnot. What else was I going to say? Then we also have a website if you want to check out more about the publishing company and the game, and that's just 4figames.com. So yeah, and I have kind of like a couple different accounts. Like on Instagram, I have a personal account as well, and I'm also on Twitter, but Twitter is not nearly as active. Instagram is kind of like my most active account, and then Facebook is probably second.
Perfect. So, like you're saying, you're going live next week.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's going to be very interesting to see and to follow, and we'll make sure to list all that information in the link below. And thank you so much for the interview, and we'll catch the rest of you guys next time at the table. Bye.
Thanks.